If two people are truly destined to share a path together, there is one particular pattern that never seems to fail. It really does not matter how different their backgrounds are or how completely unexpected their meeting feels. There is one specific thing that always shows up first. Most people tend to believe that destiny looks soft, sweet, and beautiful from the very beginning. They hold the idea that it arrives as a sense of instant comfort, easy love, and the profound feeling that everything in their life has finally fallen into its rightful place. They imagine two people meeting, sharing a smile, and just knowing deep down that this is the one. But the reality of destiny does not work that way at all. Real destiny enters your life quietly, and then it shakes absolutely everything up. It does not bring a sense of immediate peace. Instead, it brings a period of significant disruption. When two people are genuinely meant for one another, the universe does not rush them into being together. Instead, it creates a necessary distance. It pulls them apart, challenges everything they believe to be true, and forces them to face themselves in the mirror. It breaks down the illusions they were living in, often without even realizing it. And please understand that this is not an act of cruelty. This is a vital form of preparation. If you truly believe that two people can be meant for each other, take a moment to hit that like button right now, because before two destined people can actually come together, they must first be fundamentally changed. If two people are truly meant for one another, there is one thing that almost always takes place. Many people mistakenly believe that destiny looks like instant joy. They imagine two people meeting, everything falling into place, and life suddenly becoming simple, smooth, and predictable. But true destiny does not arrive in such a gentle, effortless way. Real destiny usually makes its entrance by disturbing the order of your life first. When two people are truly meant for each other, the universe does not hurry them into a relationship. Instead, it often creates space by pulling them apart. It breaks down their false beliefs, it pushes against their rigid expectations, and it reshapes who they are as individuals. This cycle of disruption tends to repeat again and again. And that is the one thing that always happens. People often have a deep misunderstanding of what destined love actually is. They think it should feel comfortable from the very first moment, like a safe, soft place where nothing can ever hurt them. But the truth is that destined love rarely begins with comfort. It begins with the act of recognition. The first sign of a truly deep and meaningful connection is not a sense of peace. It is the feeling of recognition. You meet someone, and something deep inside of you responds before your mind even has the time to process or understand what is happening. You may not feel calm. You may not feel entirely secure. You may not even feel sure about them at all. Yet you feel seen in a way that truly unsettles you. It feels like they are noticing parts of you that you usually keep carefully hidden, even from yourself. This can be incredibly confusing because most of us are conditioned to expect love to feel soothing and reassuring. But destiny often feels uncomfortable when it first arrives. Please remember that this discomfort does not mean that the person is wrong for you. It usually means the exact opposite. It means they are reflecting parts of your own being that you have been avoiding. They act as a mirror for your fears, your deepest wounds, and all of your unfinished emotional work. They do not just see the polished version of you that you present to the world. They see into the deeper layers of your soul, and that can feel quite threatening. That is the primary reason why these destined connections often feel so intense instead of being easy. They bring a deep level of awareness before they ever bring any kind of closeness. This is also why people who are meant to end up together rarely manage to stay together at the very beginning. If two people are truly destined to share a future, life almost always finds a way to separate them early on. This separation is never accidental. It happens for very specific, profound reasons. One person might still be carrying heavy emotional pain from their past. One might be terrified to open up and show vulnerability. One might not yet understand their own inherent worth. One might be trying to love from a place of fear instead of a place of completeness. Sometimes both people are simply still unfinished. And as we know, unfinished people, even with the very best of intentions, have a way of hurting each other quite deeply. So, destiny steps in and creates that necessary distance. It essentially says that it is not yet time. It knows that if these two people were to come together too soon, they would likely damage what could eventually become something incredibly meaningful. The separation, as painful and agonizing as it feels at the time, is an essential part of the design. It is not a punishment, it is pure preparation. When these destined people are separated, the pain often feels very different from ordinary heartbreak. It is not just about the sadness of missing someone. It is a deep, jarring sense of confusion. It feels like losing your true north or your sense of direction in life. You do not just miss the physical presence of the other person. You feel as if a piece of your own soul is missing. This happens because these connections are not tied to the ego. They are inherently connected to your personal growth. When a person like that leaves your life, it forces you to stop looking outward and start looking inward. It pushes you to finally face the things you have been avoiding for a very long time. Go ahead and comment the word destined if you have ever felt a connection that simply would not leave you alone. As you walk through this experience, you begin to notice your deep-seated fear of being abandoned. You start to see clearly how much you seek validation from others to feel whole. You recognize your long-standing habit of giving way too much of yourself just to keep people close to you. You become aware of how you constantly avoid taking full responsibility for your own emotional needs. These realizations are deeply uncomfortable, but they are absolutely necessary for your journey. The pain you feel is not meant to break you. It is meant to awaken you to a higher truth. Destined love has a unique way of changing you very quietly. Even when there is no communication between you, even when there is total silence, something profound shifts inside your heart. Even when your logic tells you it is time to move on, and even when there is no contact at all, you begin to change. You become much more aware of who you are. You become far more careful about who you allow into your inner circle. You start being more honest about your true feelings and your personal boundaries. Things that you once accepted as normal no longer feel right to you. Situations that you used to tolerate now feel draining and heavy. People you once spent your energy chasing no longer hold the same appeal. You begin to develop a genuine desire for depth instead of just surface-level attention. You start to crave a real, authentic connection instead of looking for temporary comfort. Often, you do not even realize that this growth is directly connected to that one person. But the change really began the moment they entered your life. They acted as a powerful trigger. They initiated a process deep within you that you could not stop. This kind of connection does not create a state of unhealthy obsession. Instead, it creates a state of deep reflection. You do not lose yourself by thinking about them every waking moment. Instead, you start thinking critically about your life, your repetitive patterns, and your daily choices. You reflect on who you are as a person and who you are truly becoming. You start asking yourself much deeper questions. Why do I love the way I do? Why do I have such a strong fear of closeness? Why do I constantly settle for less than I know I deserve? These difficult questions slowly begin to reshape you. These connections work in ways that are not always obvious on the surface of your life. They may disappear from your daily schedule, but their impact remains imprinted on you. They change how you view relationships forever. They change how you see yourself. They raise the bar for your standards, not just for how others treat you, but for your own behavior and your level of self-respect. They teach you that love is not just about two people being together. It is also about becoming a whole, complete person on your own. Over time, you might notice that you are no longer willing to repeat the old, toxic cycles. You stop chasing people who are unable to meet you on an emotional level. You stop ignoring the obvious red flags just to feel chosen by someone. You start valuing your peace, your honesty, and the importance of mutual effort. This growth feels natural, even though it was born out of deep personal pain. And that is exactly how you know the connection was truly meaningful. Destined love is not loud or flashy. It does not always stay for the long haul. Sometimes it comes into your life, changes you completely, and then moves on. Sometimes it leaves so that you can grow into the specific version of yourself that could one day sustain a real, healthy love. Whether that person eventually returns to your life or not is not always the main point. The true purpose was the transformation, the awakening, and the redirection toward a deeper, more conscious way of living and loving. When two people are truly meant for each other, Their story rarely follows a straight line. It moves through distance, confusion, and the hard work of self-discovery. It forces growth before it allows for union. And that pattern, time and time again, is the one thing that always happens. You think about them during those quiet moments when you are becoming more aware of your true self. You feel their presence during those times when you are changing quietly from the inside out. You think of them during those long nights when everything around you feels still and your own thoughts become louder than the world. You think of them during those emotional breakthroughs that arrive without any warning at all. These are the moments when you suddenly understand something about yourself that you did not see clearly before. You are not thinking of them because you are simply lonely. You are not thinking of them because you need attention or cheap validation. You think of them because something deep within your soul understands that the connection carried immense meaning, and that meaning has not fully settled into your life yet. Your soul recognizes that there were unfinished lessons involved. It recognizes that something very important was activated through that connection. This is not a sign of weakness. This is not obsession. This is not the type of attachment that people usually describe in negative terms. This is integration. It is your inner world trying to find a place for an experience where it truly belongs, trying to absorb what it taught you, and trying to understand how it changed the fabric of your being. A destined connection does not just disappear simply because time passes. It stays present in very quiet, subtle ways. It shows up when you take a step forward in your growth. It shows up when you heal a piece of your past. It shows up when you finally outgrow the old versions of yourself that you no longer need. That is because the connection was never just about romance. It was always about your transformation. Type yes in the comments if you want me to reveal the hidden, deeper truth about destined love. Many people often ask why a connection like this feels impossible to replace. They try to replace it. They go out and meet someone new. They enter into new relationships with the best of intentions. They try to distract themselves with constant conversations, busy activities, and new routines. They convince themselves that moving on is the same thing as forgetting. Sometimes they even believe they have actually succeeded. Their life looks perfectly normal on the surface. They laugh, they socialize, they move forward in their day-to-day life. But beneath that surface, something feels fundamentally incomplete. There is a subtle, persistent emptiness that does not go away. This is not because the new person is unkind or unlovable. It is not because the new relationship lacks effort or care. It exists because the new connection simply does not awaken the same level of depth. It does not challenge the same vital parts of the soul that the other connection did. A truly destined connection does not exist to compete with other relationships. It lives on a completely different level. This kind of bond is not built on mere attraction, nor is it strictly about excitement or the rush of chemistry. It is not defined by comfort or how familiar someone feels to you. Instead, it is defined by evolution. It is about becoming much more honest with yourself. It is about being pushed to confront parts of your soul that you may have been ignoring for years. Destiny performs its work on both people separately long before it ever brings them together again. Distance is never a punishment. It is a classroom. While you and the other person are apart, life is busy shaping you in very different ways, and this process often happens through deep discomfort. One person begins the process of learning about boundaries. They learn how to say no without feeling a heavy weight of guilt. They learn how to stop giving away so much of themselves that they have nothing left to receive. They learn that real love does not require the sacrifice of your own well-being. They learn that choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness, but a necessary act of survival. The other person begins the process of learning accountability. They learn that silence can cut just as deeply as harsh words. They learn that avoiding your emotions does not make them disappear. It only keeps them trapped inside. They learn that all actions carry consequences, even when their intentions were unclear at the time. They learn that any true connection requires a high level of responsibility. One person learns the meaning of self-respect. They stop accepting uncertainty as a valid proof of love. They stop waiting around for a clarity that never seems to arrive. They realize that consistency is what truly matters in the end. The other learns the meaning of emotional courage. They learn how to sit with their own discomfort instead of running away from it as soon as things get tough. They learn how to face their own vulnerability instead of trying to escape into distraction. One person learns how to stop the cycle of chasing. They recognize that love is not something that can be forced or coerced. They understand that chasing someone who is not ready for you only creates a state of painful imbalance. The other person learns how to stop running. They realize that distance does not actually protect them from the pain of loss. It only serves to delay their necessary growth. Both people are changing constantly, but neither can see the full picture yet. This is entirely intentional. If they were able to see the entire design too soon, the process of growth would come to a sudden stop. The unknown creates the necessary space for true transformation. Take a moment to comment the word separated if destiny has ever pulled you apart from someone you felt was the one. Before two destined people can ever reunite, the illusions they hold must fall away. The universe removes your false beliefs very slowly, and often in a way that feels painful. You might have held beliefs like the idea that love should never be hard, or the thought that if someone truly cared, they would always stay no matter what. You might have believed that love must be earned through suffering, or that another person is meant to come into your life to complete you. These ideas feel very comforting in the moment, but they actually cause great damage to real love. They create an unhealthy sense of dependence. They create fear. They create expectations that no human being could ever fulfill. So, life begins to strip these ideas away. This stripping process does not happen gently. It happens through long silences, through painful distance, through disappointment, and through those quiet moments when you are forced to sit alone with your own thoughts. You begin to see yourself with absolute clarity. You begin to recognize your own recurring patterns. You begin to understand the specific ways you abandoned yourself in the past to please someone else. You learn that love is not meant to save you from yourself. You learn that another person cannot fill the empty spaces within you that you have not yet healed. You learn that a real, authentic connection begins with your own sense of wholeness, not with a feeling of emptiness. Share this if you are currently going through a separation that feels like a spiritual journey. There comes a moment when something profound shifts inside you. You simply stop needing that person. You stop checking your phone for signs. You stop waiting for a specific message to arrive and change the course of your life. You stop hoping that they will return just so you can finally feel like a complete human being. And that specific moment is not bitter at all. It is incredibly peaceful. This is exactly where destiny starts to move forward again. It happens not because you tried harder to force it, but because you finally let go of the need for a specific outcome. Real love is not about dependence. It is about a conscious choice. When both people are able to stand firmly on their own, when love becomes a genuine desire rather than a tool for emotional survival, true alignment begins to happen. If they do return to your life, they will return as different people. They will return with much more awareness. They will return fully capable of something deeper and more stable than what existed before. And if they do not return, the lesson remains yours to keep. You are no longer the same person who entered that connection. You are stronger, your vision is clearer, and you are much more grounded in reality. You have integrated the lessons you were meant to learn. That is the fundamental truth of destined connections. They are not about possessing another person. They are about your own personal transformation. They enter your life not to stay in the same form forever, but to awaken you, to change you, and to guide you toward a much deeper understanding of love, self-respect, and inner development. When two people who are truly meant for each other come back into each other's lives, something feels quietly different. It is not a loud or dramatic reunion. It does not demand attention from anyone else. Instead, it feels incredibly steady. Your body relaxes before your mind even understands why. There is much less tension in your thought process, less fear about what might go wrong, and far less ego trying to prove a point. You are no longer performing for them or protecting yourself in the way you once did. What shows up instead is pure honesty. It is the kind of honesty that feels natural and completely unforced. It is the kind that does not need any explanations or defensive arguments. The connection feels much calmer because both people have already faced their own chaos on their own. It feels deeper because they have looked inward and finally seen their own shadows. It feels clearer because the old illusions have already been shattered. It is not perfect, and it never pretends to be, but it is conscious. There is awareness in how words are chosen, how silence is respected, and how personal boundaries are honored. There are no games being played, no hidden intentions, and no need to constantly test each other's feelings. There is no confusion about where you stand. There is simply the calm of recognition, like meeting a familiar truth once again, only this time with maturity and real strength behind it. And sometimes, even with all of this growth, those people still do not return to each other. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, yet the destiny between them was still entirely real. The connection was not imagined. It was not a mistake. It was not a waste of your time. Not all destined connections are designed to last forever. Some are meant to exist only long enough to change you. Some are meant to enter your life, shake your inner world to its core, and then leave once their purpose is fulfilled. Type the word growth if this message is awakening something deep inside your soul. There are connections that come into your life specifically to break cycles that have been passed down through your family for generations. These are the relationships that expose patterns you learned long before you had the power to choose for yourself. They reveal where love was confused with self-sacrifice, where attachment was confused with safety, and where silence was confused with peace. These connections force you to see what you have been carrying that was never actually yours to begin with. They bring buried pain to the surface so it can finally be healed instead of repeated. Other connections come into your world to teach you the true meaning of self-love when you have been neglecting yourself for too long. They mirror back to you the way you allow yourself to be treated. Through them, you see clearly where you settle, where you shrink your spirit, and where you abandon your own needs just to keep someone close. They awaken you to the truth that love should never cost you your dignity, your voice, or your sense of self. These lessons are painful, but they are absolutely necessary. Without them, you might have continued to give too much and ask for too little. Some destined people come to awaken the emotional depth within you.